Yeah, so probably back around 2009, 2010. I've got a couple of local buddies here that I deer and turkey hunt with, and they're huge waterfowl hunters. And they would invite me every year. They're like, "You've got to come. You would love it." They got me into turkey hunting. I really got into that pretty heavy, and I told them, I said, "Listen, I'd love to go duck hunting. I just don't have the time, and I know how I
Hmm.
am. You guys are right. I'm gonna love it." And so
That's the problem.
I I ended up going with them one time, and I was like,
Uh-huh.
I can't believe I waited till I was 35 years old to go duck hunting.
Right. My first duck hunt, I view it as like the old Narnia story where they walk through that dresser, the cupboard. I don't know what they call that name. And they walked through the coats and they walked into that land. That's the feeling I had that I can remember when I was 13. We didn't have any decoys. We were just on this teal hunt. But it's
Mm-hmm.
just like the water, the cattails, the wind,
Yeah,
the shorebirds. It's like a magical experience. I remember that very first feeling. It's just like everything
that's a great
changes.
analogy.
Everything changes. And we didn't kill anything. And I think back at that experience. We stayed in a little pop-up camper the night before, just my dad and I. And I think we got sky busted one shot, but it was just fantastic. It was the environment of a marsh, especially a big one that doesn't feel man-made, is
Mm,
just second to none as far as I'm concerned. I'm sure being clear up elk hunting in the mountains is glorious beyond belief. I'm sure that it is, but it's that water and all, it's just teeming with life. It's just something to behold. It's something special for sure. So it hooked you.
sure. So, was there kind of like a culture or a subculture in your area where there was some guys that were into waterfowl hunting? Because Pennsylvania, everybody deer hunted. There was
Yeah.
a huge culture of deer hunting, but I didn't know hardly any waterfowl hunters growing up.
We had a little culture of upland hunting and deer hunting in Kansas. When I was growing up through high school, there was more of that was when Kansas was in their heyday in the 80s of upland. It's deteriorated quite a bit, but there was a little bit of a subculture for that, but nothing for, you just didn't hear people talk about duck hunting at all. My family did it a little bit, but at least the circles I was in, none of my friends were hunters of any kind at all. So there was no culture really, compared to some other areas like Arkansas or whatnot. So you got into, when did you went out with them a few times, and where'd you go from there with it?
Yeah, so I got into it pretty heavy. I mean, I ran out and bought everything that I could afford. Uh, tried to learn as much as I can. Tried to practice with my calls and just trying to soak in as much information as I could from those guys. And we didn't hunt every day. I mean, we were still weekend warriors back then.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd be in, not being able to hunt on a Sunday. So we would go, if we were lucky, we would go once a week, over the
Right.
season. So we might
Right.
we might only get 4 or 5 hunts in, after deer season. But just love doing it. But just never seemed to have enough time to dedicate to it.
Yeah. So it sounds like from listening to your podcast that you're gearing up to do more duck hunting than you've ever done before. That's the way am
Yeah,
I catching that
yeah,
right?
yeah. So getting back to, we were talking about how the podcast came about, and there was a lot of things converging in my life now. I've got, you know, almost 28 years of seniority at my job, and I've built up a lot of personal time off from there. And my wife's a teacher. My daughters are in college. My oldest just graduated from college, but she's going to be jumping right into medical school. So
Mm-hmm.
I've got a lot of free time during the week now. I work on a good week. If we can do our switches, if there's nothing going on, I switch with a guy on afternoons, and I'll work an 8 hour shift on Monday. I'll work a 16-hour shift on Tuesday and Wednesday. And then I've got Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday in front of me. And my wife's at work Thursdays and Fridays. So that'll give me a lot more time to get out in the marshes and scout more and hunt more, and uh, kind of freeing up some of my other obligations, some of my outdoor media stuff. I'm kind of shifting towards concentrating on this podcast. So
Mm-hmm.
full steam ahead. for the waterfowl.
Right. Do you have any goals that I always try to set different goals for myself. Some are kind of how many times I'd want to hunt. Some of them are just personal. Like I'll pick some statistic that I track over on the app and might be shooting percentage or wounded birds or have you thought about setting any goals for yourself for this coming year?
I think the biggest one is just to try to learn the handful of spots that I got, try to learn them as best as I can. Try to cover every inch of them and really dive into the water level knowledge and the habitat there and the food available there, and just try to start really keeping track of learning these spots the best that I can. And I got your app downloaded. I'm really excited to take that into the field so I don't have to try to remember stuff and write it in a notebook or put it on a spreadsheet. So I'm looking forward to tracking all those stats and uh, just trying to become the best waterfowl hunter that I can in Western Pennsylvania.
Thank you for watching this clip from the North American Waterfowler Podcast. Make sure and subscribe. If you want to see the full episode of this podcast, go to the description where you can click the link. And as always, starting up September, I will be posting all of my waterfowl hunting videos for this coming hunting season.